everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We are here for a special edition of the Knightrider Podcast, and we are here in the Holyoke Public Schools Media Center. And today is October 22nd, 2021, and we are really glad to be joined by Mr. Joshua Garcia, who is currently a mayoral candidate here in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And I am Patrick Sweeney. I am the co-editor of the Holyoke Herald.
Hi everyone, I'm Joshua Morales, and I'm a writer for the Herald.
Hi, I'm Katie Powers, and I'm the writer for the Herald.
I'm Joshua Garcia, citizen of Holyoke, mayoral candidate.
Hi, I'm Mr. Baru. I'm the journalism teacher here at Holyoke High School. I also teach business, and I'm faculty advisor for the Herald.
Hi, I'm Annalise. I'm the co-editor and the sports editor for the Herald.
Hello, I'm Conrad Broderick. I'm the head photographer and the podcast editor for the Holyoke Herald.
So we wanted to begin here by asking some fun questions about you, and starting off by asking us to tell you a little bit about yourself. Like, where did you grow up, some of your favorite hobbies, some family life that you'd like to share.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me here. It feels great to be back in my alma mater. I graduated Holyoke High in 2004. My Holyoke story begins with the migration of my mother and grandmother from the island of Puerto Rico. I grew up in South Holyoke. I'm a product of the school system here. I went to Lawrence School, Lynch School, and Holyoke High School. I'm a Boys and Girls Club kid. I started working there when I was 13 years old, making $50 a week. And I worked there all throughout high school and through college. I went to Westfield State University, got my bachelor's and my master's there. I worked for the Holyoke Housing Authority. I went on, got my career jump-started at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, Municipal Services Manager, and did that for 5 years, and now I'm currently the town administrator at the town of Blandford, which is a municipality outside of the city of Westfield. I'm a father of two beautiful children, twins, 2 9-year-olds. I am a legal guardian of a freshman here at Holyoke High School, Tatiana, great kid. And so a couple of little things I like to do. I am a local government junkie. I do find it exciting to sit at home and watch city council meetings, believe it or not, whenever I'm not focused on my work at the town of Blandford. I enjoy spending time with my family, taking my kids out and engaging in youth sports, although we had to put all that on hold, recognizing our position here in this race, running for mayor. So.
And what work experience do you have that you think would aid you as a mayor?
Yeah, I think, so I told you that I started at Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and I was the Municipal Services Manager there. And so my role there for 5 years was to work with local governments up and down the Pioneer Valley to assess their operability, identify where the inefficiencies are, and then providing recommendations on how they can improve municipal services. And from there, I took that and put it into practical experience for 3+ years as the town administrator in the town of Blandford, of which where is a lot like being a mayor. In Holyoke, we have a form of government where the mayor is the city manager, and I can tell you that the role is hard. It's not easy. So that means that if you've never done it before, there's oftentimes learning curves. There's a lot of hit the ground running things you got to learn, which is not terrible, but what happens is that there's a lot of liability at stake here. So learning curves are expensive because mistakes happen, ultimately impacts the quality of your services and impacts the tax rate in the city. And so I do have a strong practical knowledge around how these work, which makes me qualified to hit the ground running on day one. I did serve on the school board representing Ward 1 when I was living in the Flats. I served on the Fire Commission as a fire commissioner. I've engaged in many community development initiatives in the city of Holyoke since I was a kid to date, and so I'm very familiar with the quality of life issues impacting my community, our community, which also I think makes me uniquely qualified to be able to navigate our community's differences and bringing folks together so that we can solve the problems that are happening within our municipality. And as mayor, or as your next city manager, it's going to be up to me to be able to work with stakeholders, to be able to understand our revenue parameters and help elevate the services that are important to you.
And what are some positive and negative things about the city of Holyoke?
So I can tell you that this is my city. This is our city. And I can tell you there's a lot of positive. I think the one major positive, when you look back at where we were in the 80s and in the 90s and even in the early 2000s, we are certainly in a very different place today, and I think that me sitting up here is proof to that somebody like me can potentially be the next mayor in the city of Holyoke. I think that in and itself says a lot about the progress that we've achieved here in Holyoke from where we were to where we are today. I think some negatives, although there are challenges, I think challenges, to me, I recognize them as opportunities for our community to come together and help resolve. No matter how great things are in a community, there's always a challenge or a priority that we can focus on and be better. And so I wouldn't necessarily call them negatives, but instead, recognize these as opportunities to work together to solve the important issues, just to make things a little more better than what it was. But there's a lot of positives going on that we need to embrace and be proud of as Hoyokers, as citizens of this great city. Some of the challenges, though, that I've heard on the campaign trail, certainly the schools being in receivership is a challenge. The issues around homelessness and addiction has been an important topic. The quality of our infrastructure has been an important topic when we talk about streets, when we talk about sidewalks, when we talk about the conditions of your school buildings or any public building for that matter, the cleanliness of our parks. I think these are all symptoms of a bigger problem, and that problem is the gap in management. And so that's the experience I bring to the table, and would love to have a meaningful conversation with how we can work together to close that gap and elevate those quality of service issues.
So you brought up schools. So our schools have been in receivership since the 2015-16 school year. So hate asking two-part questions, but my question would be, do you have plans to transition out of receivership? And if so, what are your plans for the transition?
Well, I don't think my plan is any different than what the plan is currently at play. We do have a school board who is on an advisory capacity, but I have to give a lot of respect and appreciation to the current receiver and even the previous receiver, Dr. Wright specifically, that has maintained this very collaborative spirit with our local school board. And so there is a plan in play to transition the school's control back to local control. And so my role specifically, or what I want to do specifically, is to help communicate that a little bit more strongly, be a little bit more transparent with the community so that folks know that we are on the path to local control. I want the community to know what those benchmarks are between now and the next 4 years. Between now and the next 4 years, every year, what are those benchmarks, and how do we measure that so that we know that we're on track back to local control? And so just as a manager, when you're, in my profession specifically, we're the accountability office. We don't just sit around and pay bills. We have to proactively look at things and make sure that we're being creative and strategic as possible to be sure that we're doing what's best interest for the residents of the community. And so I do think that the best interest of our community is to have locally controlled schools. But we just can't go in there and say, thank you, but no thank you, we'll take this back, have a nice day.
Correct, yeah.
But instead, be straightforward and strategic on that transition between now and the next 3, 4, hopefully sooner, that transition back to local control.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know that you were talking about how you're very familiar with the community of Holyoke, so I just wanted to know, what are some positive things within the city that you find inspiring?
Holyoke, very different than any other community. We're like its own brand. If you're from this city, no matter what the challenges are, we're very proud to say, hey, I'm a Holyoke person, I'm a Holyoke girl, I'm a Holyoke guy. My family's from Holyoke. I know this person, I know that person. We get Holyoke gear and we wear them proudly with shirts that say Holyoke on it, or a Holyoke Night sweater. I have a couple of them at home. It's its own brand, and I think that we need to definitely capitalize on that, because I could tell you this, and I tell this all the time. When you think of, in your mind, when you think of a successful community, a community that you think is doing very well, that you often like to visit or even go to on vacation, what's making that vision in your mind is the people, right? It's the pride and the civic engagement that takes place in that community that is building the infrastructure for folks to recognize what it is, so you can say, hey, I'm going to go, like Northampton, for example.
Great example.
You know, family want to go out for dinner. Hey, let's go to Northampton and see what's over there. And you walk around, you get your ice cream, and you get there's this culture, this vibe that's going on there.
Absolutely.
We can do the same here. I'm not saying we're going to be Northampton, because Holyoke is Holyoke first and foremost. But the infrastructure and the history, the urban feel that we have in our city, the differences that we have between cultures and the language people speak and the income level, this is what makes Holyoke. And if we can somehow bring those elements together and build a little bit of pride and get more folks more civically involved, when we feel good, we want to do more. And so that is what's going to help transition this perception of whatever negative perception people might have of our city to, hey, look, Holyoke is happening. I want to move there. I want to raise my family there. I want to grow my business there. I want to visit there for dinner, have lunch, and walk around our downtown. So as manager, working collaboratively with each of you and members of our community, you know, if that's the goal, what is it can we do between now and the next 4 years to help elevate that?
So just another question following up on that. What do you think us as a community, as citizens of Holyoke, what do you think that we could do to help you better the process?
Wow, that's such a great question. So I think, hey, look, so right now, what grade are you guys in?
I'm in the
Junior. Hey, we're all
11?
juniors here.
We're all juniors.
I'm 11.
We're all juniors. You're
Yeah.
focusing on. I think what I can tell you is, as far as you're concerned, you guys are concerned, I want you to focus on what you're doing here in school. Get your education. Focus on what your future is going to look like. Whether if you decide to go to college after you graduate from high school, whether if you decide to join the military, whether you decide to hit the ground running and go to work. I want you guys to focus on what your future is going to be, and I hope that your future stays in Holyoke, where you'll choose to decide to live, work, and raise your own families. You will have your own children one day. And so, I think that's where I want you to focus on. As far as the community at large, I want folks to get involved in our government, right? Be part of the solution to the issues that come up. We often talk about the lack of engagement in our political process. People don't come out to vote in the numbers of which we would hope and expect. We have several ways, different initiatives and community involvement that's going on, and I like folks to engage somehow in some way so that we can be sure that as we build on this pride in our community, that it's reflective of the population we're serving, that it's serving the very people that we're here to represent, that it's not just coming from me as your mayor, that it's not just my idea, it's your idea. And I want folks to take ownership of the excitement that's going on in the city of Holyoke.
Well, do we have any questions in the audience?
A very quiet audience. Oh,
There we
Sam.
go, Sam.
Yes.
Sorry, I was supposed to be up there. What's your favorite breakfast or lunch place in Holyoke?
My favorite breakfast place Well, when I'm on the run, I just grab my regular black coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, and I just and I go. But today, before coming here, I had breakfast at Rusty's, and I go back and forth between Mrs. Mitchell's and Rusty's. Really good breakfast locations. If you haven't tried it yet, I definitely recommend it. My favorite lunch place, I have several. I often go to Fiesta Cafe on Main Street for lunch. Very good local establishment. What I like when I'm there is just, it always reminds me of what Main Street can be. I always credit the business owner of Fiesta Cafe. His name is Juan Montano, if anybody doesn't know him or not. And the level of investment that he's done on that establishment on Main Street in downtown Holyoke is inspiring. It really provokes your thought on what can actually happen in our downtown, specifically on Main Street in the city of Holyoke. Other good lunch spots, there's a restaurant on High Street, Paraíso Colombianos, a Colombian restaurant. What other good? Damp Cafe is actually really good. You work at the Damp Cafe? I go to lunch. Whenever I have meetings, go to the Damp Cafe. Another great spot. And I know I'm missing one more.
We go to Crave like every day.
Well, our campaign headquarters is right next to Crave on High Street, and if you haven't had it, really good spot, but we've been eating there more often than ever. Oh, and Capri Pizza. So,
my God.
Who doesn't like Capri?
It's my favorite pizza in the whole world, and I'll tell you, I lived on Summer Street. That's where I grew up. I lived in the yellow building right behind Capri, and I told you I started working at the Boys and Girls Club when I was 13, and I was making $50 a week, so I used to walk down to what used to be Pat's Supermarket, which is now Key Foods. It used to be Seatown. I keep changing these names. Cash my $50 check, and I'd cross the street to Capri and get myself a slice of pepperoni, a Mountain Dew, and a bag of chips. $5 and get change back. I don't think you can do that today. Capri Pizza, the Santiniello family that owned the place, have known me since I was a little boy. Great supporters, great people, and if you've never been there, definitely recommend going there too.
And what is your favorite part about being a Holyoker?
My favorite part about being a Holyoker, this is a funny story. So, I told you I have twins, 2 9-year-olds, and we're so happy about being Holyokers that we put a birthing plan for our twins to be born at the Holyoke Medical Center, the Holyoke Hospital. And my wife and I were at IKEA, and if you don't know where IKEA is, it's about an hour and a half away from here in New Haven, Connecticut. And my wife's water broke. And I said, there's no way my children are going to be born in Connecticut. Thankfully, it wasn't a full-blown, it was just a little bit, and it gave us just enough time to zoom over here safely, and make it to the midwives at the Holyoke Hospital, and the twins were born. Again, my wife and I, like many families in the city, we have those same conversations like many first-time parents. What schools do we want our kids to go to? Do we want them to go to their Holyoke public schools? Do we want to, out of district, go to another town? Do we want to put them in private school? And I got to say, thankfully, my wife and I have been very fortunate enough to have that level of flexibility. We ultimately chose to put our children in Holyoke schools. We could have moved to another city. We have those same conversations. Do we want to raise our children in Holyoke? Why not go to South Hadley? Why not go to East Hampton, Long Meadow, these surrounding communities? We chose to buy our home and invest here in the city of Holyoke. And ultimately, the conclusion of that, when you ask the question about what's my favorite thing about Holyoke, it's so hard to describe because it's just, I think it's all of it. We're so just connected to this city in a way where it's just, it's part of me, it's who we are. And certainly there's a lot of things to be proud of. There's the culture the community differences that we have in every corner, from West Holyoke to South Holyoke. It's not just one group, one culture, one way of life. You got many folks with different flavors, and I love how that makes Holyoke. I love how the Irish community celebrates every year St. Patrick's Day. That tradition, that's a tradition we need to embrace and continue. I love how every year the Puerto Rican community comes out and celebrates. I love how the city of Holyoke does flag raisings and raises every flag. Whether if it's the Pride flag, the Puerto Rican flag, the Dominican flag, the Irish flag, the Polish flag, we need to, that level of pride is important to me, knowing who I am and where I'm from and what my background is. The city of Holyoke represents my Holyoke story, just like each of you, I'm sure your family has their own Holyoke story, and I can relate to that. And so I love everything about that, and it's every reason why we decided to invest and stay here in our city.
Nice. Yeah, I was wondering if you had any specific plans, like to revitalize some of the downtown district that has like a lot of empty storefronts and things like that, to get tourism kind of back to Holyoke like it once was.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways it's already happening. During the pandemic, when restaurants everywhere in other municipalities were closing, the city of Holyoke was the only city that actually had 6 new restaurants open in our downtown. Was it 6 or 7? Maybe 6 new restaurants. We're seeing a lot of new industry and new interest coming into our downtown. When you talk about investment in our downtown, that's where we're lacking. The city puts a lot of pressure on people and business owners to invest here. But when I speak with folks, they feel like the city's not investing in them. And so business owners rely, as they pay taxes, on us to keep the streets clean, to make sure downtown is safe, and to make sure that our infrastructure is welcoming, it's inviting, that we have enough green spaces to help with the aesthetics and the pride that's happening downtown. And we haven't seen any of that such a long time. I think the most recent investment probably is what's happening on Ray Street. And I think we need to just continue to expand on that, continue to invest. And it's hard to do that when we have the management that we have in our local government right now, and that's where my campaign has been focused on, is to do the internal reorganizing necessary so that we can leverage the resources available to you, to the citizens, so that we can do the appropriate investments in our downtown to contribute to the greater economic development strategy, what we often call the ecosystem, the economic development strategy to grow the city of Holyoke. So when you ask me what my plan is, my plan is to focus at City Hall, so that as we're navigating the issues, that government is not becoming a barrier to people's success and growing in our city. We often hear about how hard it is to open up a business. And it is, although possible, we're not making it easy enough. And so I think if we can just find those efficiencies and reorganize, we might see a lot more growth, more to the extent than what we're seeing now. So I don't want folks to feel like there's nothing happening. There's a lot of exciting things happening in our downtown that maybe folks are not just too familiar with, and I hope to be able to communicate better and be more transparent with our community to know what the strategy is in our downtown, and what our strategy is to actually invest in our downtown, to upgrade our infrastructure, to support this growth that we're seeing in our city.
Oh, yes, Nevaeh.
Kind of following up on what Patrick said, do you have any plans for all the empty buildings and factories to fall around Holyoke?
Yep. So the plan is to continue the existing plan. I think we've had a pretty successful track record. A pretty successful track record in reconverting and putting to reuse some of the old buildings back into, whether if it's mixed uses for industry and business, but also residential and market rate, combination of market rate and affordable housing. I think the most recent example is the Alpaca Mill building. I think you guys are familiar, right next to the police station. There's this really long, there was a local and state partnership to leverage resources, $40 million, John, more or less, to redevelop this empty, blighted building that's been empty for a very long time into an 88-unit development. And so what's great about that, it's going to increase density in our downtown. It's going to be affordable housing, and we're putting back to use these old buildings. Obviously, there's other buildings that we have to assess and understand what the conditions are, and if there is a question about safety, I think we all remember. Well, maybe not you guys, but maybe you remember the Essex House building a couple years ago or so. I don't know if you guys heard that story. There was a story about this beautiful Essex House building on High Street that used to stand there, that the roof caved in. And then there was a lot of discussion and disagreements and how to effectively tackle this particular issue, and ultimately led to bricks starting to fall, of which then had to be expedited to just tear the building down, just in the matter of public safety. So there are issues of which where we have to assess the conditions, and if it is in the matter of public safety, where there's a lot of structural issues, and we don't want anyone to get hurt at any moment. But certainly a lot of other buildings that are very strong, that are still standing and are not as dangerous. We have to do what we can to continue to try to figure out how we can repurpose them, putting them back into use, back into the city's tax rolls, so that we can leverage those taxes and continue to maintain the services that we all care about.
Just to change topics for a second, we've talked about COVID briefly, but what are your plans to tackle COVID or continue to tackle COVID as a city?
Yeah, I think it's no different than a lot of the practices we have already been seeing in place, right? Like continue to be safe. We wear our masks, wash our hands, get vaccinated. I know there's a group of folks that don't feel that vaccination is the direction they want to go. I try to encourage it anytime I can. It's a very important situation of where we want to keep our community and other people safe. But nevertheless, we're going to continue to implement the strategies in the attempt to be sure that the safety of the public is secured. So your question was, what are we going to do about COVID and what else?
Just like how to handle it in the city.
So there's that. That's the one thing. The other component here is the impact COVID has had on businesses as well as people and families. Although quarantining was very important, and the measures that were put in place is very important, I often worried about the impact it was contributing to families of lower income, families with mental health issues, families that may have are struggling with addiction, because the one very important element for humans, which is human connection, talking, speaking, hugging, laughing, those are things that are very important for our way of life, just as humans. And it's the one thing we were telling people not to do. Stay home, don't connect, don't. So that brings a whole new set of struggles. We're in a struggling district with the school districts, being in local control, and we got, populations that are very vulnerable that come to the school district, and that might have issues with access to internet, for example, or to keep up with the changes to this whole new norm, this new way of life that we had to quickly adopt. I did sit home, often worried about, we're doing this, but now we're creating this other issue here, and it's going to be much harder for. So as managers, as a mayor, we have to look at that and be sure we're doing what we can to close those gaps, to make sure that our businesses who are impacted, that they have the support of the local government for rapid recovery, that they're able to get back on their feet, come back better, stronger, and contribute to the greater fabric of our economy. And that we do what we can to continue to do wraparound services for our families that might have been impacted during that time, so that we're meeting their needs in a way that allows them and their children to succeed in the city of Holyoke and to continue to on with their plans, whatever their future plans were. So it's a very unfortunate reality that we were introduced to, and we're just going to have to work a little harder in how we navigate these so that we're supporting our community and so that we're coming up, so we're lifting ourselves much better and much stronger than we were before.
Well, any more questions, you guys?
Question on transportation infrastructure.
Yep.
So I have an aunt in New York City. I visit her like once a month, and I usually take the train to see her. And I know we have a rail line that goes through Holyoke. We have this beautiful station in Holyoke they built a couple years ago. But there's only like 3 trains a day in each direction. And there was talks about a commuter rail service between Springfield and Greenfield. Would you like to see that actually happen?
No
and would
question.
you like to see the Amtrak service expanded so
Oh,
people
absolutely.
can reach their families?
And that's
in
a
other
regional
cities?
discussion. I remember when I was at Pioneer Valley Planning
Yeah.
Commission, my former boss, Tim Brennan,
Yeah.
who saved my life, by the way.
Oh, really?
He passed away, and it was it hit me hard. But that was his baby.
He did a lot of work for that. Yeah.
For bus transportation, we brought Pioneer Valley Bike Share. That was an important project that I was a part of, that I was happy to be a part of and bring to the region. Any way that we can meet all the transportation needs of folks to get people moving and connected and access to jobs is always a win. That's a regional initiative that I'm looking forward to join other representatives, both state and federal delegates, our partners at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, our partner municipalities in the Hampden and Hampshire County region, to continue to advocate for it, because that's what it is. It's advocacy to be sure to make sure that this is in the forefront as a priority, so we can leverage those resources and keep pushing the plans to support this. Because although from the last time I read, and I could be wrong, but I think that we were the ridership increased, and I think we were maximizing.
When I'm on the train, I'm surprised how many people I see.
That
It's great.
it might feel like
It's
folks
great.
are not using the train,
No,
but
they are.
they are.
Absolutely.
And it's important to communicate that and show folks so that the greater community at large understand that the data and understand that this is an important component to community development. So I'm all for it, and I'd love to continue the good fight on that, to be sure that we can take advantage of that regional asset, for sure.
That's great, because I'm tired of hearing people say, like, I got to drive to New Haven to take the Metro North and to New York. Take it from Holyoke. We got this beautiful station.
I love
so
to.
that's
I
great
love
to
to
hear.
be able to see folks jump on a train and go to Boston.
Oh, that would
I
be
might
great.
even just consider doing it now, just because you guys are talking
we
about
might
it.
I know
Yeah.
Eric Lesser.
Yeah.
I know
Half
Eric
the
Lesser's been
trip.
working on that
Well,
for
I'm
many
kinda
years.
bored.
I mean, it's important.
I'm sure he
So-
will get there.
So can you imagine if it takes you an hour and a half to drive to Boston?
And there's traffic.
What would high-speed rail? What would it be like? Maybe an hour commute, maybe lower. 40. So if it takes you 45 minutes to jump on a train and get to Boston, then think of those job opportunities that might be out there that the folks in Western Massachusetts can gain access to.
That'd be
And
huge.
even folks in Boston, the commuter rail system that they have out there, they have a system where employers, you can grab your laptop the minute you get on the train, your workday starts. So that 30, 45-minute commute, you're already checking your emails, your workday starts the minute you jump on that train.
You're
right?
much
Like,
more productive, absolutely.
our work culture changed where, folks are now being more creative on how they do business. So instead of the traditional being in the office, we're able to get work done at your local cafe. People are getting work done in their homes. So it's going to be a new way of life, a new way of life, because it was a way of life then, before there were cars and then it kind of just, and now it's going to slowly make a comeback, and it's
revitalized and renewed, and it's a lot better than what it used to be. And I definitely think that it's going to be the future of transportation within the next couple of years.
When we first started planning bike share, when we first started having that discussion, what did we hear all the time? The bikes are going to get vandalized and they're going to get stolen. The bikes are going to.
Really?
That's what they were saying.
Oh my God.
They were like,
I use
"Why
them
are
all
you
the time.
wasting your
It's
time?"
never happened.
The bikes are going to be found in the bottom of the canals, or whatever the case. And you know, we did 3 different feasibility studies in 3 years. This is a much longer story if you have time, but to keep it short, we did 3 different feasibility in 3 years to be sure that we're coming up with a system that works for our region, that worked for Holyoke, that worked for Springfield, Amherst, South Hadley, and now is expanding to East Hampton, West Springfield. It's growing, and it's growing because it was well thought out. I'm a big believer that you get what you plan for. It was well thought out, well implemented, and the things that they were putting out there about the bikes being stolen, they're going to be vandalized and thrown in the canals, just never happened. It's not true. But we have to push up against the narrative and continue to advocate for these important things that people depend on. I mean, folks use that bike to get, right? They use it to get to school, to get to work.
Absolutely.
I've been seeing them around. Too. You can jump on a bike share from the flats and get to Springdale, or you can get to the Highlands, and vice versa. You can, if you have to go to Seatown or Key Foods now in South Holyoke, there's a bike share right outside of that grocery store. You can go from the Highlands. There's a basket. You can jump down there, and it's electric assist, so there's no effort really involved. It just glides you to your destination. And you have folks that say it's a waste of money, it's not going to work, but there are people in our community that need access to little things like that. Bikes, trains, buses. These are very important services to help meet transportation gaps for our population, even for our most vulnerable who might not even have access to a vehicle. And so, we're going to continue the good fight on that front, and I joined Senator Lesser and other folks to continue to advocate for trains, and we'll see what that can potentially do in the very near future for the city of Holyoke.
Nice. Yeah, I think we're good to wrap up then, if nobody else has anything to add. And we thank you so much for joining us on this latest edition, special edition actually, it's important to note, of the Knightrider Podcast. And we thank Mr. Garcia and his campaign for
thank you guys
getting back to us so quickly and being able to come and share their voice with the Holyoke High School community and also the local community. So thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time from the Holyoke Public Schools Media Center.
Thank you.
Have a good day.